Hi guys, I'm Miss Geis, and I'm one of the counselors here at Westerville Central High School. Today we're going to kind of walk you through parts of the college planning process. So let's go. So, college planning. What we'll cover today is we're going to talk about the college search as well as visit and utilizing Navient, which is we call it our one-stop shop for college and career readiness. We're also going to talk about the high school timeline, junior and senior year, and then also give you some just different common terms and definitions to be aware of once you start the application process. So I know they talked before in the beginning of the intro video of the school counselors. So we've got Mrs. Monica Johnson, Mr. Klepfer, Mrs. Lemon, myself, Erica Geis, and Carrie Ackerman. And then we also have a guidance secretary. Her name is Lauren Hughes. And then Molly Bazard is our registrar. So college admissions process, I think the most important thing to know is just you really have to know yourself first. So, what are your talents, your skills, values, your vision, what types of goals do you have? All of those things are really going to play an integral role in the application process. So, what are your interests? So, think about what interests you. Some students may have an area that they like to study, like history or English, but you may not know what specific career path you may want to pursue. So, once you have a better idea of the career path, you can then determine the educational path and major you may want to pursue once you graduate high school. So, where to start? So, like I said before, Navient is our one stop shop for college and career readiness. This is a really important tool that we have for students. I'd say this has been around for some years now, and it's really geared for grades 6 through 12. And so, with this, you could do a lot of different things. You could research colleges, complete career interest surveys. So, especially for students, if you're not really, certain on what you might want to do, this could be a good option for you. So you can look for scholarships, complete resumes, and also search careers, like I said before. So when you look at Navient, when you actually log in, this is what you see. So this is kind of like my demonstration, but you'll log in, you'll see where it says Welcome Warhawks. On the right, it has like my favorites. And then there's also something towards the bottom that has like a what's new. And this is something that for really juniors and seniors, you have the option to, listen to colleges. They'll come and visit. A lot of our visits this year have been virtual, but we also like to put, what's new in terms of what colleges will be coming to visit down here. So you'll be able to see that. It's like a running tab that, we add something, and anytime we have a college that will request to meet, with our students here, then we put it in the what's new section. So college visits, like I said before, we have colleges that will come to visit throughout the course of the day. This year, due to the circumstances, a lot of those visits have been virtual. But, it's really never too early to start going on those visits. So you have, visit days where you're able to visit the school. You can schedule the college visits on the website. This year, because of the COVID, we haven't had too many students going to actually visit the schools, but I think they are now allowing you to go. So some schools, may allow you to do that in-person visit, but if not, you can always do a virtual visit. So in the fall, we talk about like the great deal of admission reps that we have that come in during the school day. And this is only really open for juniors and seniors. Let's say, it never fails that, we might have a student that could potentially be a sophomore or maybe even a freshman. Like if they're really interested in a program and they may want to hear what a college has to say, then we do try to work with that student to make sure they don't miss an opportunity. So, let's say, we have these colleges coming to visit. Like I said before, we typically put things out in Navient, but then we also make announcements. So during the morning announcements, we'll put stuff on there about what colleges are coming to visit for the week and the day. And then when you want to sign up for it, you just need to come into the counseling office and sign up there. So the steps in the college application process. So one of the things you have to do is complete the common application or the college application. So what I mean by that is there are a multitude of ways where students can apply to different colleges. So the common application just means what it says. It's a common application that you will go on, complete the application, and there'll be like a part where it'll ask you information. You only have to put that information in one time. But then let's say you apply to different colleges, there will be, different information and, steps for that individual college. But, there is part of the application that's just a common part. And then the other things, you'll hear typically is if a student is applying directly to the college. So there are some schools that may not use a common application, and you can just apply directly to the school by just going to the school's website for that. And then also, in that application process are requesting transcripts. So every year we typically will meet with students, senior students, and kind of give them an overview of everything that they need in order to apply to college. And part of that is the transcript request. And so this year we did things a little differently because we were all virtual. We had a virtual form for students, but typically, we have paper forms that are here in the counseling office that students can fill out and request. And then we then will send those transcripts out via Navient. And then also there's letters of recommendations. And so we typically have students, or we tell students, like towards the spring of their junior year, going into their senior year, if they have teachers that, they're pretty close with and that they're thinking about, maybe they would want a letter of recommendation from, having those conversations with them prior to us going into the summer. That way, they can ask the teachers, they can provide them with a resume or, something that talks about the accomplishments of the student. Keep in mind that not every school needs a letter of recommendation. Okay. And so that's one thing that we do talk with students about because we might have some students like, oh, I need to have like 3 or 4 letters of recommendations, but not every school will want that. So we say, general rule of thumb, if you have 1 to 2, then you should be in good shape. You also want to make sure that you ask teachers that, have the same interests that you may want to partake once you apply to college. So let's say if I'm going into college and if I want to be an English major, then it might be okay, but it'd probably be better for me to ask an English teacher to write my letter as opposed to a science teacher. So the next part is the ACT and SAT scores. So a lot of schools are now going test optional. And so I think a lot of it has to do with COVID. So I'm not sure how that's going to look for next year. But, ACT and SAT scores are definitely something that colleges will look at. And then too, a lot of times with scholarships, you might need certain scores in order to be eligible for a certain scholarship. So lastly is the financial aid and scholarship. So pretty much financial aid just means money that you're going to be getting for college. And so that could vary from scholarships, which means you don't have to pay for that. There's grants, which means that, it's free money. You won't have to pay that back. And then there are loans, which loans we all know that are something that you have to pay back. But typically students will fill out something called the FAFSA. Starting in October. So October 1st, students can fill it out and they'll use the student information as well as parent information. And then based upon, what the income is, then that will determine what you can be eligible for. So college admissions testing. So we talk about the SAT and ACT. So actually today is the day where juniors were administered the test for the SAT. And so as a state, students are able to take one college admission test free of charge. And so this year and years past, we've chosen to do the SAT. And so students have taken that today for juniors. And then we still have some students that will take the ACT. And like I said before, we typically start taking these in the spring of the junior year. But one thing you want to make sure of when you're registering for the test, that you or the student will put down what schools or colleges they may be interested in attending, because those scores will be sent to the college for free. It's not something that you have to do, but if you don't do that, then, you'll have to pay for those scores. So the ACT, so just kind of a brief overview. So the score ranges from 1 to 36. You have reading, English, math, and science as the subjects for the ACT. And the composite score is what you will get. And that's just the average of the 4 sections. And so it ranges from a 1 to 36. And then they also have an optional writing portion. And so again, like when you're looking at college admissions and seeing like what the colleges want you to have, some colleges might ask for the writing portion. So just make sure when you're looking at that, then like, okay, well, I have to take the ACT and I have to take the writing portion because this is what this particular college wants me to have. So the SAT, again, this is what we just administered to the juniors this school year. So this is an evidence-based critical reading, writing, and math. Okay, so there's 3 different subjects for that. And so the score ranges are from a 200 to an 800. And so the overall ranges are 400 to 1600. So the most you can get on the SAT is a 1600. And they too have optional writing tests as well as optional SAT subject tests. So, what students can do now? So, junior year, visit colleges. So, we said, we talked about before how a lot of the colleges now are really doing a lot of virtual visits, but you still may be able to find some in person, visits. Prepare your college list. So, use your Navient as a guide. I mean, we really, hone in on this because, like we said, there's so many cool things you can do with Navient. So, you just want to make sure that you're using this as a guide for you. Also, take the ACT and SAT. Like I said, the SAT, we took that today. And then make sure that you take a rigorous course load your senior year, but really just throughout your whole high school career. And, rigorous for some students may look different, so maybe it's taking your honors and AP. Maybe for another student, it's just taking your AP, or some student is just taking honors. So just make sure you really just take your rigorous course and just challenge yourself, really. And then also determine if a letter of recommendation is needed. Like I said, and we talked about before, it's not always required. And this next piece is really important because, we do have students that are athletes that will be, attending college to play collegiate sports with NCAA Division I or Division II. And if that's the case, it's really important that you register with the NCAA clearinghouse because with that, I will send out the transcripts in the spring, or actually in the summer of the student's junior year, going into senior year, to all students that have registered with the portal. And so that way they will look at that to determine your initial eligibility. If you have questions about that, don't hesitate to contact the student's counselor, or you can contact myself as well. And then lastly, finish strong your junior year. So then if we look at senior year, what can we do? Make a calendar and organize key dates regarding the application deadlines and financial aid and scholarships. So our hope is that next year, if we're back in the building, we typically in the last few years have gone in through the English classes and we've met with students. We've given them a copy of their transcript, given them copies of like a calendar, like a up-to-date information of timeline of what they should and shouldn't be doing throughout the course of the school year. And so our hope is that we'll be able to get into those classrooms next year and do that as well. Also attend the financial aid meeting. Every year we have a financial aid meeting that talks about various financial aid. We have somebody from Ohio State that typically leads it. This year it was an all virtual meeting, but next year the hope is that we'll be back in, and so we'll have that meeting then. Complete your applications and talk with teachers about letters of recommendations. So again, it's so important to pay attention to the timelines when you're completing these applications. So if colleges say it's the November 1st deadline, you have to make sure you have all of your stuff in by November 1st. And like we said before, there are schools that don't really need letters of recommendation. So just make sure you look at that and then talk with your teachers about writing those letters of recommendations. Applying for scholarships, especially local scholarships. We have local scholarships that become available in December. And so we've had scholarships that vary from, let's say, if a student went to Huber Ridge, maybe they were a crossing guard, there's a scholarship for that. We have scholarships for boosters, academic boosters. There's different sports scholarships that are available here through Westerville. So we really encourage students to apply for those various scholarships. And then also completing the FAFSA. Like I said, that starts October 1st for financial aid and scholarships, and they go on like the prior year. So I want to say that will be like the 2020 tax information for the FAFSA for next school year. And also keep up on the grades. This is so important. I know that students have a lot of different things that they're thinking about and going through throughout the course of their high school career, but it's so important to just keep them on your grades. If you feel like, there's issues or you're slacking or you're not doing that great, have a conversation and make sure you communicate with your parents and teachers because that's what we're all here for. And then lastly, May 1st is a deadline to notify which college you're going to be attending. And so you want to make sure that you say May 1st, where you're going to be going, and then make sure you have all the, proper paperwork that you need. So terms and definitions. So early action, you're going to hear a lot of these different terms throughout the course of senior year and even maybe even before that. So early action just means that you can apply to receive a decision sooner, and you sometimes have the opportunity for different scholarships. So a lot of early action deadlines, let's say, are like November 1st. And so with the November 1st deadline, you also can apply for various scholarships, or you'll be considered for various scholarships if you apply by that certain date. Early decision, on the other hand, is you apply to a school, and it's really only one school. Okay, so you can only apply to one school early decision. And so if you get accepted to that school, then you pretty much commit to say that's where you're going to be going. And so then you must withdraw other applications to all the other schools. And we say like this should be the school that you plan on attending. And so you may see this as like an early action or early decision 1 or early decision 2 deadline. Next, we have the rolling admission. And this just simply means that the school accepts applications until the start of the enrollment, okay, or until the enrollment is full. FAFSA. So this is a free application for student aid, which we've talked about in the previous slides. So you want to fill this out as early as possible, okay? And like we said before, they use this the prior year. So that means for the class of 2022, you'll be looking at the tax returns for 2020. And I have a link in here too. So this will be a PDF, so you should be able to click on the links for those. Thank you for attending. I will be available for, any live questions that you have. Yes, and there will also be a frequently asked questions posted of questions that we typically get asked. But then if you see that, and if there's anything else you want to know, then feel free to hop into my next session where I'll be available to answer questions. Thank you.